Hey, welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. I wanted to talk about Alfred and his, as my wife Beth always calls him, Alfred the German, because his case always seems to attract and create a great deal of sympathy for the way that life is sort of unfolding for him. Well, anyway, we actually put out a plea for advice based on experience from anybody who had suffered or had succeeded. And one letter that I got was very detailed. I'm just going to read the letter. I won't read any names out, and I'll try to make it as impersonal as I can, if I can, with this phone, which actually seems to be haunted at the moment. Now, as anybody knows, the problem at the moment is, and Beth and I have suffered this when we tried to bring the Volkswagen back from Luzon, and when we went there we tried to get the documentation sorted out, but we were missing the original certificate of registration, and it all began to get messy. And people, the lady that came out said, well, yes, it can be fixed, but there will it will cost some money. We were quoted 10,000 pesos or something, and we just didn't have that. So anyway, it seems like somebody in the office will come out and quietly talk to you, and you'll be made aware of how serious your situation is. Anyway, the gentleman that called said, I had a similar situation as Alfred. I was 13 months overstayed on my tourist visa stamp because I was stuck in the province and no public transportation to Davao to the immigration office. I had not been here 3 years yet. I arrived February 2020 and extended once for a month. So I was good until April 2020 on my tourist visa. Well, we ended up flying to Manila and going in person to the main immigration office. The official immigration website would not let me make an appointment. That's right, it always showed not available. So we went in person to the immigration office. The guards would not let me into the office without an appointment, so catch-22. Then, and this seems to be a common experience, some shady looking character standing by the entrance handed us a cell phone to call someone inside the office. A woman came out, assessed our situation, went back in and came out again and quoted us a price. Let me see. We had to file a motion for reconsideration because I was 13 months over my visa stamp, and because I'm married to a Filipina, I could convert to a 13A spouse visa. This is where it gets bad for Alfred, is that he's not married to a Filipina. So, it's different. He said, a gentleman said, I was quoted a price by the lady that came outside to talk to us of 95,000 pesos to fix the 13-month overstay, and I would have 30 days to leave the country, or pay 135,000 to fix the 13-month overstay and convert to the 13A spouse visa and not have to leave the country. Now, if that was available to Alfred, I'm sure that he probably would or will try for that. Problem is, he is not married to a Filipina. So, the 13A provisional spouse visa is only good for 1 year the first time, then in a year have to apply to get it converted to a normal 13A, which is good for 5 years at a cost of another 60,000 pesos. Not exactly sure how that works, because I'm the 13A, I'd thought, and I'm just going on opinion now, so don't quote me on this, but I thought that that was the resident visa. According to this, apparently it's not. The resident visa that I applied for was granted for 1 year, and then after 1 year, which was described as provisional, probational maybe, and then as long as you didn't get in trouble, it was extended on a permanent basis, and you just have to appear once a year and pay a very modest fee of about 300 pesos. So anyway, or pay 135 pesos to fix a 13-month overstay and convert it to a 13A spousal visa and not have to leave the country. Okay, we opted to pay 130,000. They discounted us 5,000 pesos for the 1 year provisional 13A spouse visa, where I did not have to leave the country. That's over $2,700. The receipts that we ended up getting from them showed much less than what we paid. I estimate we overpaid by at least half of what it actually cost. We had agreed to pay the lady 20,000 peso for her fee. Surely she made at least 2 or 3 times that fee. Once again, that's I regard that as an opinion, which may or may not be true. So now, I had my 1 year provisional 13A visa with an updated iCard, and it cost me 130,000, and I didn't have to leave the country. So he's expressing the opinion, so I don't know what to tell about Alfred. He's not married to a Filipina, where he could convert to a 13A spousal visa. Has he overstayed 13 months on just his tourist stamp like I, or was he already over his 3-year mark where they must leave the country? So these are all questions which Alfred would be able to answer. But one of the things that I don't know whether I read it. Oh, it says, incidentally, the lady that came out of the immigration office to talk to us, to assess our situation, was not an immigration official, but rather a travel agent. So you can see, it kind of gets into, you're on shifting sands, is how I like to describe it, or unfortunately have to describe it. So what we're trying to help Alfred. He's a friend. You may not know the backstory. Alfred turned up on our doorstep, literally on our doorstep. He stepped out of a tricycle taxi with a suitcase on very shaky legs, and said that he had come to stay for 7 weeks. Well, that was quite a mouthful and quite an earful, I can tell you, to suddenly have somebody that we had never met in our lives and never heard from suddenly arrive and say that he wanted to stay with us for 7 weeks. Well, the way that it worked out, we did actually take him in, because he seems to be that kind of person that, as I say, attracts or generates or creates a lot of sympathy for him. And this last time that he came to us has not been any different. Really would like to help him. And just to clear up one question which someone asked, was didn't Marjorie have, Marjorie is the lady that helped him to go to Manila. I should explain that Marjorie is someone who works for the agency, for the charity that Beth and I have, and we had suggested that she might be willing to chaperone him, if you like. Alfred was very shaky about and very nervous about the idea of going to Manila, which he regarded as being an extremely violent and unpredictable city, which is a fair assessment if you don't speak the language and you're not actually in the best of health. So he's on a walking stick, and yeah, he is frail. Sorry if he's looking at this and doesn't agree to me on that, but that's the impression that he gives. So, which is probably why people actually want to help him. Well, we don't know exactly what's going to happen now. He's not married to a Filipina. Now, he's not married to a Filipina, so therefore it's difficult for him. He can't really demand to stay. And if they tell him that he's got to go, here's the problem. If he has to go, he won't be able to come back on the present rules. On the present rules, people, it seems, and even this may be a variable, because it seems sometimes that it depends what particular official that you're talking to when you ask, what's my situation? And so you might speak to someone who says, no, you've got to get out in 5 minutes, and then you go away for 4 minutes and come back again, and the next official says, oh, it's fine, we can handle all of this, but it's going to cost money. And that for sure is probably going to cost Alfred money. I think fortunately he is able to pay that. Now, whatever he pays and wherever it goes is another thing, because as that gentleman whose letter I just read out said, he ended up paying, I think it was 130,000. That's a fair chunk of change, you must admit. I would hate to be going anywhere and suddenly be presented with a bill for 130,000. So, what can we tell you about what's going to happen? Right now, we don't actually really know. We can't say with confidence whether he's going to be able to leave the country. Now, if it was that he could leave and then return, that would be another thing. But we're really not sure about that. If he could pay whatever the price was, whether it was 100,000 or whatever, if he could pay that and stay, then I'm sure he'd probably be delighted to pay that. But once again, we really don't know, and this is the problem. It's kind of like you're being asked to hand over money up front for no guarantee. Now, if someone could guarantee that he was going to pay 100,000 or 130,000, and that fee was going to be honoured as being the fee, what a friend of mine always used to say, is that out the door? In other words, is that it? Is that the bottom line? And that's what we really need to know. We're trying to find that out, and it's going to need, you really need sadly, you really need someone in the office who can step outside and say, I'll walk this through. And sadly they're in business, and they're going to charge a fee, and they're not slow about coming forward. What is it? What's the expression? Not backward about coming forward. So they're not backward about coming forward with a pretty hefty fee, because they know that foreigners have got no choice. Now this touches on a situation that could be impacting a lot of people. Now in 2020, you can look up these statistics yourself. I just went to Google and put in the questions, and out comes the answer. In 2020, 1.5 million foreigners came into the country, but 2 million left, and it was the biggest exodus of foreigners from the Philippines on record, apparently. So what we're looking at now, the statistic that interested me was, I wonder how many foreigners are actually out of status, what I would call out of status. Out of status is when their visa, for whatever reason, has run out, and they now technically do not have permission to be here. So they're illegal. They are illegal immigrants, aren't they? Now, for those who, and I did know of one case where the guy just kind of threw his arms up and refused to deal with the immigration official that was being so very difficult. Others that I've heard of who were more aggressive were actually physically removed from the immigration office by security guards. Don't know how true all of that was, because in the particular case that I listened to of one guy, said at first, on the first thing, it took 3 guards to remove him. He's a big guy, and then the next time he told me the story, it took 5. So I thought I'd quit while I was ahead there, otherwise it would be an absolute army that was trotting down there to get rid of this giant of a man. So who knows? What is plain is that it can be difficult. Now, at one time when I first arrived here, so 7 years ago, and I was looking on these various expat sites where evidently these are people who are quite experienced about being in the Philippines, which I was not this time around. And they were saying, you know, one comment in one of the on one of the videos, the guy said, well, what I do, he said, you need an exit visa and all of that. He said, what I do is I just pay it all when I get to the airport. And apparently at one time they were quite what shall I say, laid back on this, and there was no great problem. But I remember that one time that I came back, and I made the mistake of thinking that the second time, that the first renewal, you get a one. I made a mistake thinking that I had renewed for 2 months, when actually they'd only renewed for 1 month. So in panic, because I'm not someone who actually likes, as far as immigration goes, I like things to be fairly straightforward, and I like it to be on the up and up. So I was in panic when I discovered that actually I was a month out, that I should have renewed last month, instead of thinking that my renewal was coming up in the month ahead. When I got there, they were very kind to me. They just charged me the 1,000 peso fee. So there's 1,000 pesos that was a fairly standard penalty. So I got that, and then they renewed as per normal for 2 months. Now I don't have that issue. And I am legally here. I'm in status. I don't have any overstay issues, and will not have them, because I'm a permanent resident. Now I found, you know, with all of the prices that I've been reading about how it's costing 50 and 60,000, and that one gentleman said that he finally got the 13A visa, which would cost, that he would be able to renew at a cost of 60,000. I don't know where those figures come from. My own recollection on how it worked was, I think I paid for the initial application for permanent residency, and I was in status, everything legal, with the right passport and all of that. So no issues and no problems. I went for the interview. I paid, I think the fee was something between 11,000 and possibly 13. My memory fails me on that, but let's say it was 13,000. once what they did at that time, they actually posted your name online. So you went away and you waited for them to post your name online. Now when they posted my name online, I came into Cebu, told them, yes, here I am. They looked it up, yes, there you are. And then they gave me my resident visa for 1 year, which they said this is, they didn't say temporary, they said is provisional or probational. You're on probation for a year, and as long as you behave yourself, after a year, then you become a permanent resident, which is what I am. After the, and on that moment, that was the moment at which your name has gone online and you're being called in, right? So you go in, and then I believe the fee that I paid into the office over the counter to an official with a badge was 9,000. So I paid 9,000, and then I had to wait until the card came in. Now, of course, there was no pandemic, so or plandemic or hoax or whatever you want to call it. There was no chaos being generated then. So I came in, and I'd already paid, I either paid the 9,000 then to get the card, or I'd already paid it. Either way, I paid my initial fee of somewhere between 11 and 13, and then the 9,000 after that, and then I got my my residency, and now I just have to appear once a year. It's very, very simple, and I just pay. The last time that I looked, it was only 300 pesos. So it was well worth whatever it cost me. It was well worth it, because before that, every 2 months I was going along there. I would either have to get the bus, which was a nightmare because they drive as if they're on the wall of death, or even worse, I would go in one of the white vans, which was truly terrifying, I have to say. And I would end up spending 2,000 or 3,000 or more, because we usually ended up, if I went, sometimes I took Talic with me. Everything was, everything seemed to be very laid back then. It was only later that some people started getting accused of taking in kids or trafficking or whatever like that. So it was possible then that some concerned citizen would actually make a phone call. And in the case of 2 people who were helping a large number of kids, but that were actually staying in their house, and they got into a lot of trouble, and actually think they did a month or maybe more in jail, which certainly you don't want to do if you can possibly avoid it. So, but Talik and I used to go up there, and we'd go and have pizza, and then we'd go home. But I'd always end up paying 1,000 over just by food and bus fare and pizza. And sometimes we might take in a movie or something like that. So that was how it worked then. So the money that I paid for my permanent visa was well worth it. How Alfred is going to go on, I really don't know. And I know that there are others who possibly are going to be in a very difficult situation. As I said, in 2020, 2 million foreigners left. Now, a lot of them were Koreans, a lot Chinese. Chinese are the ones that come over. Apparently, the most recent case that I saw was that they'd found a couple or three Chinese who were working illegally. Of course, I don't work. Nobody. The American or British expats really, I don't think are working. They're not going out and applying for a job. So there are other things that can be done. I think that there is still one option that might be open to Alfred, whether it will allow him to just continue to stay. That will be the thing. But if you can put up $10,000, you put that into a bond. I believe it was 10,000 the last time that I was looking at this. 10,000 was a bond. You put that into the bank and you agree not to spend it. It's just invested in the bank. The other thing was that I'd heard was that you could invest in a condo, and I think for some strange reason it has to be one that is being built. That's what I remember. Don't quote me on that either. I always say that if you want to really know what the situation is, you need to call immigration, because that's the source. And I get letters all the time from people who tell of changing a situation. You know, when Beth and I got married, it took a long time to get the things sorted out, and because of that, based on my experience, I said, you know, if you're hoping to come over, you know, the people who are coming over to get married and they found their Filipina and they want to get married, I said, if you're really thinking that you can come over and just get married in a week, you know, somebody who lives in Vegas probably think he could go and get married in 10 minutes. But it's not like that here. And certainly for Beth and I, it was a drawn out situation. You know, we had to. Beth, how long did it take? Was it 3 months it took us to get everything organised, or 2 months?
2 months.
2 months. It took about 6 to 8 weeks to get married, because you're looking around and you need to get a judge who's got an opening in his schedule. And then somebody wrote to me straight away after I published that, we posted that video, and said, James, I did it in 2 weeks. You see, so it's almost like there's no magic wand there, or maybe there is for some people. So we'll continue to try to help Alfred. If we can find someone, even if they do seem to be a travel agent, if they can make it happen so that he doesn't have to leave, then that will be great, whatever it costs, as long as he can afford it. So Alfred now obviously has a lease on a property on which he has built a house, and really I think he is quite lonely, and it would be better if he had a partner. But what can you do? You can only do so much for anybody that needs help. In the past, we have helped people who, when something happened, or some little hiccup, or whatever happened, a couple of people have turned around and said, I never asked them for help. So there we're out on a limb, and for no other reason than to just try to be a help, we were being criticised. So let's hope that we can find someone who can help Alfred. It obviously is much better when you're being turned away at the door because they won't give you an appointment, and they won't let you in without one, that's catch-22. Then it does help if someone in the office can come out to you and talk to you, even if the price is high. Let's hope it's going to be good. For those who I remember seeing as a closing comment, I remember seeing in one of the other expat sites, which are composed mostly of good information. I found a little bit negative for me, tend to be critical of the Filipino way, which always seems strange to me. If you come to another country, running away from all the regulation and the crap in whatever country you've come from, and then you arrive here and start trying to make it here like it was in the place that you ran away from, doesn't make any sense. But I did read comments there where they'd said that they could pay a fee and everything would go away. And so maybe that's the situation, that's what will happen now. Who knows? I hope sincerely that Alfred will be able to do that, and that he will be able to stay, and well, we'll see. So thanks for looking in. For those expats who are out there, who are out of status a while, like I was going to say about the expat, the one particular expat site that I saw, was that a lot of these people know each other very well on these sites, so they're talking back and forth, and it's kind of like Dick was talking to Harry and saying, listen, I know and my attorney knows an attorney who has been operating on behalf of Duterte, the president, and the word was that they were going to start clamping down on people who were out of status. Now, but he said, the one thing that I had learned was that if you went in and paid the fees and did it, they would look on that kindly. Now, whether that turned out to be the case or not, I don't know. But when I read that, I remember a couple of people that I knew, I mentioned that to them, but they didn't thank me. For whatever reason, people hold their business close to their chest, and I guess they take their chances, you know. But it would be a very cruel blow if you are very well settled. It would be a cruel blow if you were ordered to leave, because if you're ordered to leave, as in the deportation info that was given to me on that other letter, where they said if you're given a certain amount of time to get your stuff together, that's if they don't put you into deportation prison or jail, which they can do, and then you wait while your case comes up, and can be a long wait, very much longer by the fact that you're in a Filipino jail. So you really don't want that, and if you can get it all sorted out amicably, whatever the cost, better to do it up front rather than wait for the hammer to drop. Okay, do well everybody, and let's pray for Alfred and hope that he manages to get everything sorted out. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.